We've talked about the concept demand. We've talked about, in the second part, how there are changes in demand. Our last part, our third part we're going to talk about is demand elasticity. And elasticity is kind of like a rubber band, if you want to use that as your example. How much do things stretch and change as you apply different kind of pressures on it? I mean, that's the idea of a rubber band. Well, if we turn that into products and we turn that into economic thinking, how responsive is the measure or a factor such as quantity affected by another factor such as price? Or in other words, how likely are you going to change your buying decision or how much of a product you'd be willing to buy depending on the price? Now, if we move on, we're going to take a look at two different products and see how responsive they are to price. If we talk about a product, Synthroid is an example. My son has hypothyroidism, and his body, when he was born, his thyroid doesn't generate as much this Synthroid as it's supposed to, and that helps your cognitive development. It helps you through management of weight, management of body temperature, things like that. As a parent, if you go to the doctor and the doctor says, well, your son needs a medicine, it doesn't really matter what the cost of that medicine is. We're going to go without something else, and we're going to choose to buy this medicine. Or if you look at another product similar to that, how about insulin? To a diabetic, insulin is very much a need. It's not necessarily a want, it is a need. And if that price of insulin goes up a bunch, they're going to do without other things, and they're going to make sure that they buy that insulin. That's something they need to keep themselves alive. On the flip side, if the price of insulin drops a ton, diabetics only need so much insulin. They can't stock it up and stockpile it for months and months and months on end because it doesn't last that long. In turn, diabetics need the right level of sugar in their blood. So, putting more insulin in isn't necessarily better. So when you take a look at that type of a curve, dealing with a product, you're going to see a kind of a straight up and down curve. And what that represents is it doesn't really matter for the change in price. You can have a very large change in price, but the quantity demanded is going to be fairly constant. It's not going to change all that much. When we put that in economic terms, we're going to call that inelastic. So when you take a look at a demand curve that is very straight up and down, very steep, it is called inelastic, which kind of matches up with insulin. Price change can change a ton up or down. The quantity demanded is not going to change all that much. If we take a look at, say, a second product, and that second product may have a curve that is more flat. It may be more of a shallow curve, okay? Very sensitive to price. If the price changes even the slightest amount, the quantity demanded changes a lot, okay? This is what we would call elastic demand. Okay, lots of responsiveness like a rubber band. As you kind of pull and you kind of stretch, there's lots of give to it. Okay, price changes even the slightest amount, quantity demanded will change tremendously. These are definitely more your want type items, whereas you look at inelastic is more of your need based items. Okay. Elastic as compared to inelastic. Elastic, flat curve, shallow curve, more want type items, things you could do without price changes. Your buying decision changes a lot. Inelastic, more need based, doesn't really matter the price change. The quantity demanded is going to stay roughly the same for most people. So again, we take a look. A very large change in quantity demanded is elastic. A very small change in quantity demanded is inelastic. You may run into a situation where you have a proportional change. You have a 5% increase in price and it'll have a 5% decrease in quantity demanded. Again, inverse relationship. But if it's a proportional, it may be called unit elastic. So your three different types of elasticity, how elastic is the demand. Elastic, large change in the quantity. Inelastic, very small change. Or is it a proportional change like unit elastic?